Howdy, hey y'all, and welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you about my own personal fitness journey and transformation, more specifically how I went from this to this. We are going to be covering a lot in this video. I promise I'm gonna try to keep it concise, but for those of you with crippling ADHD and the attention span of a goldfish, like myself, I have included detailed timestamps in the description, so feel free to utilize those and jump around as you please. First, a little intro to me for those of you who are new here. My name is Megan. I have been a holistic, evidence-based fitness and nutrition coach for 5 years now. Side note, if the lighting changes, the sun is setting right in front of my window that I have my setup on, so it's gonna fluctuate throughout this video. All right, I wanna start at the beginning because I know that there are going to be some of you watching this who are going to be able to relate to my own personal background, so I do think that is worth sharing. I did not grow up playing sports. I do not have an athletic background of any kind. I was like the nerdy performing arts kid. You can literally see my piano in the background. So then when I turned 18, I didn't really have any sort of foundation in place as far as like sports or working out or anything like that. And as you can probably see in my before photo, I am naturally a very petite, skinny, small person. I really didn't eat enough. I didn't move my body. So despite being a smaller human, I still wasn't necessarily a healthy human. And that first progress picture I actually took because that was around the time that I met my now husband, then boyfriend. He's really the one that got me into the gym and got me started working out. I think he just really saw where I was in my life, which was not a good place. I just didn't even like who I was, which I think really factored into this whole me not prioritizing myself. On some level, even though I didn't realize at the time, just really didn't believe that I was worthy of feeling good about myself. He kind of understood how impactful and positive fitness had been for him and really just encouraged me to give it a try. So I got my first gym membership. We were long distance at that time, so I would just text him pictures of the gym equipment and I would be like, what does this do? And like, how does this work? I remember I was just so weak that I could barely bench press 5-pound dumbbells. With food at that time, I was really just trying to eat more in general and then just trying to make it healthier. So that's what my fitness journey looked like in phase one, we'll call it. It was actually about 5 months after I met my now husband that we ended up getting engaged and I moved to Texas. I was able to really start going to the gym with him, and that's when I started to learn more about like workout intensity, how to lift heavy. And during this, what we'll call phase two, I started to see some changes. It really doesn't take a lot when you first get started. Like, that's the cool part, is you don't have to necessarily understand everything that you're doing to see some degree of change. You go from nothing to something. I mean, you're gonna see change regardless of what you're doing. And as far as the style of training that it was very much like a bodybuilder type of plan. My husband was a bodybuilder. A lot of people at this specific gym were bodybuilders. During phase two is when I really established strong consistency with the gym, and I was going to the gym regularly, like 4 to 5 days a week. It was something I no longer had to like force myself to go do. It's something I looked forward to. Nutrition was really just the sticking point, and it was very off and on. We're gonna say that phase two lasted for about a year because it was around that time that we moved for my husband's job. So that was when phase three started. I started working with a coach because I had decided that I wanted to do a bikini competition. I was like, wow, that sounds super fun. Sparkly bikini heels. I'd done a pageant before. I just grew up being a performer, so I was like, that sounds awesome and right up my alley. So I started working with this coach with the intention of kind of loosely doing off season to build the muscle that I would need to do a bikini competition. And I'm gonna be totally honest, I did not have a great experience with this coach. It was not a good fit. I ended up stopping working with him and just kind of doing my own thing. It was also around this time that I decided I wanted to become a personal trainer. I'd been at it for a couple years at this point with my own fitness journey, and I had the desire to be able to help facilitate that type of change and transformation in other people's lives. So I went ahead and got my NASM certification, which was my first personal training certification. And then shortly after that, I got a job as a personal trainer at Gold's Gym, which is when I met my next coach that I worked with, who ended up prepping me for my first bikini competition, which kind of brings me to phase 4 of my fitness journey. She was the one that really told me, you gotta stop just putting it off. Nobody's going to step on stage feeling super awesome about their package the first time. You just kind of have to do the first one to get your feet wet and go from there. I decided I was gonna do it, I was gonna go for it, and I started my first bikini competition prep. It was during my prep that I really began to understand more of like progressive overload and how to really lift with proper intensity and how to really actually push myself. But following a much stricter diet plan, a much stricter workout plan, this was the first time in my fitness journey I had really been forced to adhere to that much structure and rigidity. Looking back, I definitely should have been in a place where I had a higher degree of consistency with nutrition before jumping into a prep. You need to have the consistency and discipline first before you add a prep on top of it. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with what happened to me at the end of my prep, which kind of brings me to phase 5 of my fitness journey, which was my post-show rebound. I'd read about it, I'd heard about it, I knew that like a lot of people had issues with food and stuff after a show, but I was like, not me, like I've never dealt with weight gain, I've never had an issue with portion control and appetite, like it's not gonna be me. It was me. It was me. I think I gained like 10 pounds in like a week or so post-show, and I just ended up with such a disordered relationship with food, and I felt awful about my body. So this brings us to phase 5, 6, totally lost count, but post-show was the next phase of my fitness journey. Navigated this for a few months before I ended up working with a new coach. We ended up doing like a little bit of a cut just to kind of get me back to a comfortable place, and then from there we did what I really should have done to begin with, which was a slow, steady reverse diet, and it went really, really well. I gained a lot of quality lean mass during that time. My relationship with food improved. We weren't doing like a strict meal plan, but more so just macros. I don't really remember how long my off season was with that coach, maybe like a year or so. Next phase of my fitness journey really started the beginning of 2020 when the great panini hit, because it was at that point that I was about to start my prep for my second show. Started the prep, I think I got like 8 weeks into the prep. Show got canceled because just the whole world basically shut down. So I didn't end up stepping on stage. Went into another off season with that coach, and I don't remember how long I was with her, but we just were no longer a good fit to work together. So I got with my most recent coach, which is, I don't know what phase we're in now. And we continued the off season, and then we started to get ready for my third prep. I got a few weeks into this prep, but for some reason this time I just like really wasn't able to find my groove like I had been before, and I was having trouble adhering and just like finding the motivation to do this. She and I had a talk. We decided to like pull out of that show, and that's kind of when I had the realization I really didn't even want to be bodybuilding anymore. Didn't feel passionate about it, wasn't exciting to me. So I stopped. I like stopped counting macros, I stopped following a strict workout plan, and I realized for the first time how burnt out I was from that much structure and rigidity over the course of so many years. And I just like didn't track anything or follow a plan for like almost the entire year of 2021, which I guess would bring me to that phase of my fitness journey. And at this point, I'm also like a really knowledgeable coach. I understand how things work. So this is when I started to just like explore more intuitive eating for myself. I was only going to the gym maybe like 3 or 4 times a week. During this time, I started to explore more powerlifting stuff because I was finding that the aesthetics side of things really wasn't exciting to me anymore, but lifting really heavy weights was. So I switched from like the bodybuilder hypertrophy style training to more powerlifting and strength style training. And that brings me to the most recent and present phase of my fitness journey, where I've actually started boxing for an acting role that I got. So all of my strength training that I'm doing like 2 or 3 times a week in addition to that is very just functional, focused on how I can support my performance with boxing. And that's kind of an overview of all of the many different phases or seasons of my fitness journey and what it's looked like throughout the years. And I share all of that because, like I said before, number one, I know there's gonna be some of you who can relate to certain components of my fitness journey and really just be able to see some of yourself and your own journey in mine. Number two, because I wanna emphasize that the majority of people who you see have these crazy transformations did not achieve that transformation via linear progression. Progress is so rarely linear, and it can look and feel like a lot of different things just depending on where you're at in your life. Could I have achieved that same transformation in less time? Probably. If I had gotten it perfect all of the time, I probably could have. But again, the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of us are going to get things wrong. We're gonna mess up. We're gonna have seasons of our journey where we don't really know what we're doing, and that's okay. I want you to see this and know, regardless of where you're at, you're still going to get there. All right, enough of that. So let's talk now about what I think I did really well and what I feel like, looking back, I could have done better. This is basically so that you guys can also learn from my mistakes. So what I did really well, I think I did a really good job of just consistently showing up over a long period of time. You know, there's been times my nutrition has looked awful and times it's been really great. There's been times my workouts have been, you know, really awful and times have been really great. But I think regardless of what it's looked like on a small scale, on a large scale, I have consistently showed up. And that really is key because your results are not the cumulative total of all the times you perfectly showed up. They're the cumulative total of all the times you just imperfectly yet consistently showed up. I also think I did a really good job with, at least with workouts. More times than not, I was following like a strategic, structured workout plan, and I think that has served me really well. You know, there's people who spend years just kind of like going to the gym, doing this and that, whatever, and not really having that strategy in place when to get them the results they're looking for. As far as what I wish I would have done differently, I wish I would have understood that it's not all or nothing and not fallen into that trap as often as I had. I think the highs and lows wouldn't have been so drastic and frequent if I had really understood that concept at the time. I do also wish that I had a little bit more consistency and direction when it came to nutrition. And a lot of it stemmed from me really just not understanding nutrition, which is really common. A lot of times when I work with clients, they tell me like, you know, working out is the easy part, but nutrition is like the complicated part. They don't understand. And if you don't understand what you're doing, it's gonna be really hard for you to feel confident in showing up and executing that and adhering to it. And I think that was like a big issue I had with nutrition.